All right, we are back, 1:45. We are back to finish up site analysis. We'll move through this. And this next slide here, I guess I should check, make sure I'm back. All right, Larry, thank you. You can hear me. All right, cool. Excuse me. All right, so we'll go ahead and move ahead on site analysis. As you can see, this one here is actually of a campus, a school campus. Right down here towards the bottom, it has a campus entrance. And so you can see this is a huge site to analyze as far as the campus as a whole. But now they have designated the area that they're going to be doing the focus on. So a little bit different on this, but still an analysis all the same. All right, so as we look at a site, we have to figure out, what are the nuisances? What are the factors that are there that are not going to be helping us in developing an environment that we want? And that's what landscape architecture is about, is developing an environment that for the client and what their needs. Whether it's a commercial building and people are just driving by and seeing some nice landscaping, or maybe it's a commercial building with people coming in that are visiting offices in this building. They want a welcome environment. There's some places that have interior and exterior and interior plants. They're going to have a landscaper do the exterior, and then probably an interior designer or even a landscaper architect could do the inside as well. They have atriums in there, foyers that are completely landscaped as well too. So we have to find out what the factors are that are affecting that. As it says in the PowerPoint, there can be street noise that maybe we're trying to block out. It can be animals, dropping leaves. Our neighbor behind us has a swimming pool, and he has a large, I forgot the name of the oak, but we have a live oak in our backyard. It's huge. I don't know who the heck planted that. It wasn't me. Anyway, it's only about 8 feet from the house, our house. So you can imagine the canopy on that just drops into their yard as well, and into their pool. So, there's a lot of concerns there. If they were to re-landscape, what are they going to do as far as the leaves drop? So, we have another thing we have to, besides the nuisances, we have to look at the planting zones within the site analysis. What zone are we going to fall into? And this is going to dictate a lot as we get into the plant selection. So what the planting zone has, a hardiness zone is basically what it is called, and it tells you as the designer what plants are going to be favorable in what areas. So on this zone here, and I don't know if I can zoom in on this or not. Yeah, a little bit. I don't know if it's affecting on your screen, but we can see the temperatures in the different areas that we're at and how they're affected. So here we have the Fahrenheit temperatures and zones that are the temperatures that we could be falling into in 7A, 7B, typically all the way to 8A as well. Sorry about that. So this is just another map, a typical map of breaking this up into planting zones, and this is the referral back to the previous slide, the different zone types. So as we look, let's go back to the previous map, and then we can see that it's color coded based on the color of that map, and then it gives you a number within that. And then here we can see what those numbers will fall into as far as the temperatures. Now, if we look at Texas here, and I thought I had a Texas map, and maybe I didn't get one of those specifically just for Texas, but here we can see that we're in a zone 7, and we could even border on what they call a 7B, but we'll get a little more into that. But here's where our low temperatures are going to fall within shoot, let me slow down, where they will fall within zone 7, 0 to 10 degrees. So those are the minimum temperatures, the average minimum temperatures we could hit in this area. I think it was our first year, maybe it was second year out here. We had 1.5 feet of snow out here. I have pictures. Actually, it's in my office. I have a picture of my wife, our son, who was, I don't know, was probably at that time 15, 16, somewhere in there. And we had a white shepherd at that time. And I have a picture of them in the park, or right behind us. We have a park, community park, and they're standing there, and you can't even see the street. The snow is just covering the street, at least 1.5 feet all the way across. And they're standing there with my wife has this hood on, and she doesn't look really all that happy, kind of happy. And our son is like really ticked off that he has to stand out in the snow and have his picture taken. And our white shepherd is smiling. If you ever see a dog smile, he is just like, this is the greatest thing ever. And like I said, that was probably in 06 or 07, and we haven't had a snowfall since then. And we've had some freezes, but just never know what the temperature range is going to be. They're giving you the average on this. Oh, here we go. Here we got some zoning for our area. So if we zoom in on this again, you can see there's Dallas, and we know we're fairly close to Dallas. And it's zone number 3, which is zone 8. And this zone 8 now is 10 to 20 degrees. So the previous one was 0 to 10, which was zone 7. And so this one here is saying, 10 to 20 degrees. So you kind of have to look at all these and take in consideration what the worst case scenario may be. I had a zoomed in portion here. I didn't even have to zoom in. All right, so planting zones are, again, our hardiness zones, which tells you what plants are best suited to winter over, or to be in the wintertime, how they will survive in the wintertime. And it's also known as useful American Horticultural Society heat zone maps is another useful tool that we can use. Now, to let you know, there's other ways. If you plant a plant that is not falling in those ranges, you still can use some methods to have them survive. They may not flourish as well in the springtime after they survive using methods of either covering them up or bringing them into a greenhouse, but they will survive. We have some plants from California, a Ficus benjaminum. We have a couple of those now, actually. I think one of them is from California. The other one is, I think we bought out here. And typically one of them started indoors. They're typically indoor type plants. And we now have both of them on our back patio, but they both have to come in either to the garage or into, I just built a temporary greenhouse that they have to be moved into to be able to survive. We also have a rubber plant. If you don't know what a rubber plant is, and I don't know the technical name on it, but if a rubber plant is typically tropical, that one is probably about 8 feet tall. So are the ficuses. They're about 7 or 8 feet tall as well. We trim those back and bring them in, like I said, to the garage. And this year we're going to try the greenhouse that I have, a temporary greenhouse that I've built. So they will survive. The ficus and the rubber plant have done really well in spring, bringing them back. Some of the other plants that we have tried to put in greenhouses haven't done as well. They've survived, but their blooming and everything has kind of been stagnated or reduced because of the cold. Now, a plant that likes that doesn't do well in heat, then it's fighting two things. It's fighting the heat and the cold. Uh, James Meek says tropical. I think almost all species of rubber plants are. Yes. Yeah, because you can tell it's tropical, right, James? Because it has the wider leaf. Any tropical plant that has the wider leaf, the big leaves, like elephant ears, those are tropical because they gather their moisture from above, not so much the ground from above, and they gather the moisture through the leaves. So, yeah, exactly. Good point, James. That that is spot on for that because it's just not the best environment in Texas for tropical plants. We have elephant ears, some of the smaller type of elephant ears out in the back, and those are root type plants. Not root. That's the wrong term. I'm losing the terminology. But they grow off a root system. They come out and they have a root system and they spring out from the ground. Yeah, towards towards big thicket is best for tropical in Texas. I think yes, exactly, James. I haven't experimented with that exactly, but I think you're right. But we're still kind of trying to decide, what plants do we want to fuss with? What plants do we want to cover up? We have some of the plants like the hydrangea I was talking about. That has to be either brought in, and when this one's in the ground, and so I think over the past years we've covered it up, and it hasn't done all that well, but it has survived. There's different things you can do, different elements that are going to affect plants that you have to take in consideration with the site analysis. So we talked about the coldness. Now let's talk about the average on the heat here. This is 1971 to the year 2000, as you can see down in the bottom left. So this data is an average temperature range, and so they have a high and low here, starting all the way from January running through December, and showing how that fluctuates. So again, we're looking down below, just above 30 degrees, around freezing for the low, and the highest it's going to get that time of year is 50, 50, almost 55 degrees maybe. My rule of thumb is once it hits, and I have been saying in the past years, I've been saying 45 degrees. It's time to. We get consistent nights at 45 and start time to bring the plants in. I'm starting to rethink that a little bit because it seems like they're getting a little bit of wear and tear. Maybe thinking maybe 50 degrees, but we're already approaching that now this time of year. Some of the nights are hitting the 50s. And I think this next week or at the end of this week, we're going to get towards the lower below 50s. I think James again says true about the temperature, I think is what you're commenting on. John says, I brought a plant from Sudan. Oh, which the same weather like Texas, but the little bugs ate. I'm sorry. Oh my gosh. So bugs you didn't have in the Sudan attack the plant, the bugs that are out here. Iman, good point. I didn't mean to laugh at you. I wasn't laughing at you. It's just comical how one place is going to survive and do well, and bugs are a whole nother. Yeah, no immune response for Texas insects. No, I'm telling you, Texas insects. James, you're right. Texas insects are just ferocious. Um, Fire ants. Let's go with fire ants for a second. But they love exotic plants. Yeah, great. Um, and I guess California plants aren't exotic enough. I guess Iman's from the Sudan is more exotic plant. So I got introduced to fire ants out here. One of the ficuses that we had when we first moved in the first house, we moved it on a truck out here, with regular moving truck, and we moved it out here. And it was a plastic pot. Well, it got cracked along the way. Well, it sat at the front door area probably for a couple months before I could do it to repot it. And so the pot was cracked. So what I did is I just broke off the pot, and then I grabbed the root ball to put it in a new pot. The root ball was intact. So grabbed the root ball, stuck my hands in it, fire ants. Well, I didn't know about fire ants. So my experience with reds in California, which bite probably about half as bad as the fire ants, is to get to some water and hose them off, and you're good. Anybody knows anything about Texas fire ants or fire ants in general? They love water. They get tipped off when they get in water. In fact, fire ants will build a raft out of fire ants to survive water. It will actually float as a raft, connected. Each fire ant connected each other and float together. You can't drown them. You have a hard time smashing them. And so when you're brushing them with water or pushing them off, now they're ticked off. And I don't know if you looked at the anatomy of a fire ant, but it has a mouth. James said their fire ants came from tropical and came from the flooding areas of South America. Yeah, they were imported here. Lucky us. Actually, I heard they were migrating from one area to another. Anyway, good point. But anyway, fire ants have a mouth, and they bite you. Oh, wait, it gets even better. When they get really ticked off, besides biting you, they clamp down harder, and now they have a stinger on the butt. Yeah. And so they go in a circle with the mouth, with your skin grabbed, and then they go in a circle and keep stinging you with their butt. So you get like 1,000, I don't know how many I had on me, a bunch. I'm trying to hose these things off, brush them off. I'm like almost ready to scream because they're hurting so bad. And finally I got it all off, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what the heck? Oh, those are mean red ants, So of course my wife, the Google master, she looks it up right away and finds out. Well, anyway, I found out I'm somewhat allergic to fire ants. I swelled up with welts and stuff that you would not believe. It was not a pretty sight for many weeks. So James Meek says, people from the north or areas that don't have stinging ants always surprised when they come to Texas. Yeah, or north or the west. Thanks, James, for the heads up. You could have told me when I came out here. Yeah, that was yeah, that was just one heck of a surprise. James McGinn says fire ants are meant to bite lit on fire. A bike light. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, that's exactly what it feels like. Um, yes, definitely fire ants are bad for landscaping. The other James Meek. Yeah, just not a good situation. It's just, well, no, they feel like fire. Um, yeah, you Jameses, man, you guys are on it. You're going back and forth. Um, yeah, so bottom line, guys, fire ants are not a good thing. I used to run around, bare feet in California and, the yard and stuff and playing, and not out here. If I get one fire ant on me, I know. And my wife doesn't hurt. She doesn't react as much. Wow, good conversation on fire ants. And on plants too, Iman. Thank you for that. All right, so we have to protect plants, environmental. So we have the insects we have to deal with. We have the temperature ranges we have to deal with. We have soil we have to deal with. All this has to go into the planning on, and this is why analysis is very important. We have to look at the shade of the property. So we have to look at the property in two different ways. I know there's a lot of information, but in two ways. We have to look at it very close up, and that is to the soil. Let's just picture we're right close up, our face is down in the soil. We have to analyze the soil. Now we have to do it from the 50,000 view as well. What sun, wind, temperatures, all that, neighbors, pests, animals, foot pattern. We have to take all this into consideration. That's why a good site analysis is very important. to put together if you're going to establish um, a good landscape, but a landscape that will survive and benefit over the years. We look at the wind. We have the typical wind speeds, direction, because wind is going to dry things out faster. Soil types, we'll get more into that. We need to analyze that. What's the pH level on it? What plant specifically needs a higher pH or a lower pH? Azaleas typically need a higher pH. Geraniums. Hydrangeas need a lower pH, but they need more calcium, I believe it is. So this whole thing on soil type, but what is in the soil? So that's the close-up of it. The wind is looking at it from the 50,000 foot level. You know, how is that going to be affected? California, they used to plant eucalyptus trees as buffers for the Santa Ana winds that would come through there. They would plant these whole rows of them along the groves and to help out on the wind. Also, they used to harvest those and use them in the railroad. This was years ago. Just a little side note on that. So then the next thing is what's below. We have utility lines. We have sewer lines. Do we, you know, how deep can we go? Do we have cables? I've hit cable in the backyard, waiting for people to yell and scream and say, "Hey, my cable's out!" You know, I guess it was a dead line because I went to the rose bush in, which I only dug down probably about 3 or 4 inches and snapped a cable line, and it was an old cable line, I guess, because nobody complained about it. So, you know, what's below us, and that's why I know they don't call it dig alert out here, and I'm trying to think of the name, but anyway, the underground utility detection companies need to be called out a lot of times. We need to compile all the site analysis that we can possibly put together. Doing a landscape site analysis includes the footprint of the house, property, the outline of the property, add existing features. We're going to put on there topography, what type of slope we have on there, what kind of drainage we have on there, and see if I can change that here in midstream. So, you know, what about how much rainfall we're going to get a year? I didn't even pull that map up. So that's a whole another thing, and that's really hard to predict in Texas. Well, I think almost anywhere. What's the year going to be like? Is it going to be really wet? It's going to be really dry. So we have to look at the sight lines, the views that we have. So when you're looking to the backyard, we have a very small backyard, and I can tell you the nuisances that are associated with that. I won't get into that, but how can we change that view? How can we make it more beneficial? Or is it something we want to look at? How can we make that the focus of the backyard or the yard that we're doing? We all have a line of sight. We have a focal point that we'll get more into in the design portion. Every yard has a focal point. If you think back to the pathways that we had in the photos, I think it was yesterday, how some of them led down to a focal point, or some of them wound around a bend and made it curious what's around there. That focal point may have been around the corner. So you have to take these considerations as a view. Where are you typically looking at the yard? Is it from the inside at the breakfast table? Is it from the patio? Is that going to be used most? How is it going to be looked? Where's the back door? What's the first thing you look at when you go out the back door? What's the first thing you look at when you come in the front door? What's the first thing you look at when you pull on the curb? The type of curb appeal. So are your eyes all over the place because it's some different types of plants all over and it's like a jungle, or are you more on the formative side where you have structure and it's not all over it, but it's more uniform type of design? And that all gets into the view. Hazards or the concerns of the property. You know, is there so much shade from the neighbor's trees that is having a difficulty with that certain type of grass growing. The nuisances, is there a lot of traffic out in the front? Do you want to build or grow some kind of protection from that? There are a lot of deaths from the street. You can build a barrier for that as well. The planting zone. So where are you planting? And is it in Texas? Is it in Nebraska? Is it in the Sudan? Where is it at? We have to know what the planting zones are for those areas, and then use SWOT to do a full analysis on that as well. All right, so that took you all the way through site analysis, 30-some slides. Hopefully that gave you some really good information. I didn't see any questions posted when we took the break. So I'll just open it up for questions for this presentation or for anything over the past couple days prior. And while you're either posting questions or thinking about questions, I'm going to go ahead and pull up the lessons for the week. James Meek says, "You must love where I live. Limestone is the only a few inches deep." Oh my gosh. I thought I had problems with clay. That's a whole nother challenge there, James. Wow. Well, we'll talk about a thing called topsoil. You might want to, probably already know about it, but probably want to take some notes on topsoil. All right. I appreciate
Mr. Taft, you just want us to do the front yard? I mean, all these drawings have the whole property.
Right. Yeah, just the front yard on this assignment. We'll get into more later on, but just the front yard on this assignment.
Okay.
All right, Larry. Let's see here. Who's on first? James, can you briefly describe it? Describe what? What would I like in what format? All right. Specifically, what are we talking about? Assignment number 4. Okay. Yep, we'll go over that. 1 second here. And it should be showing up any second. Okay, there you go. All right, so we've discussed, I think we've hammered in assignment 1, 2, assignment 3. All right, I think we've talked about that earlier today. You have been sending me examples of your work, and all the stuff I've been seeing looks really great. A few little comments on a couple items, but overall, you guys are doing a great job for the master title block that you really need. Assignment number, okay, no, assignment number 4 is what James was talking about, which is next under lab 3 for today. So use the link to learn more about the site analysis SWOT. All the information I gave you, PowerPoints today, everything we talked about, and view this tutorial. After viewing the video, sketch, I bolded sketch, an 8.5 by 11 sheet, title block and border, the format of the front yard. So everything you want on here will not include, will include everything that is there. But what you're going to do is this is all going to be in a sketch format. So you're going to take an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. You're going to draw a nice straight title block, 1 inch high, the same format that I posted, 1 inch high, divided in half. Same format on the title block. The border is 1/4 of an inch around, nice and straight. You're going to draw it with a pencil, not a pen. Draw it with a pencil, and then you're going to sketch the front yard. Now, you're going to sketch and you're going to put all the information that we have talked about on there. So all the information you're going to need to be able to do the site analysis that's in assignment 5. All right. And assignment 5, just jump ahead and I'll come back to James, your question or your post. And I'll come back to assignment number 4 in just a second, but assignment number 5 will be the SWOT analysis. You're going to actually type that out. So you're going to list each one of these, the strengths, weaknesses, the opportunities, and threats. And that's going to be on a Word document. That SWOT is going to analyze your sketch, all right? So you want to get all the information that we just talked about in the PowerPoints on the sketch. All right, James McQuinn says, can we print out the, no, James. Title block and border with a pencil. You cannot print out the title block and border, no. All pencil, it's either all CAD or all pencil. So a sketch will be all pencil. So nice straight, drawn, measured title block and border, and freehand sketch. And just like the examples I had on there. All right, James? All right, cool. Thumbs up. Perfect. The other James, hand sketching is still a skill needed in the field occasionally. James, Meek, I'm going to pay you later for that comment. Thank you so much for supporting sketching. I totally agree, and I totally understand because I used it in surveying. We still sketched out in the field. We had to sketch a problem and take it to the engineer who would have to redesign it based off our sketch of information. So yes, yeah, you can't, well, you don't always have a laptop, and it's always sometimes practical to do a quick sketch, and the other James agrees with that. Imani, oh, I guess you all want to get paid. That's why you gave me a thumbs up. I'm catching on to you guys. I got you. All right. No, but thank you for that support. It's definitely needed. And Iman, I think, don't you have some architectural background that you worked for a company or were within that degree? Is that where you were coming on the sketching? Yes. Okay. That's what I thought I remembered. So you use sketching in the profession that you were in, right? You use some sketching. You're on. Right. Okay. There you go. So thank you all for the support of sketching, because I get fights on it all the time. Well, this is not an art class. I'm not good at sketching. Get used to it. You still use it in industry. You still want to be able to write legibly. Write legibly. Sorry, the phone was going off from my boss. You want to be able to write legibly. So in sketching, you still have to write so somebody else can read it. In my 1305 and 1409 classes, I tell people all the time, what if you hand that off to somebody and they have to interpret your writing and your notes? Oh, even in your final project, where you use sketching in your industry, Iman. Okay, there you go. Iman, was that for a presentation? Was it sketching for like a presentation portion on a final project? Or are you talking about for the class final project? Site analysis, yes. Okay, when you did a site analysis, you did sketching on it, yeah. Because it's a lot quicker to take down information that way. Instead of, all right, we'll pull over and measure this tree is 5 feet away from the corner of the house, and now put a CAD and draw it out. You can take it down a lot more information quickly on a sketch. And James Meek says, don't have to be good, just understandable. Right. So your information just has to be understandable. It doesn't have to be a Van Gogh or Van Wen, wherever he was. A drawing is a form of communication. Absolutely. So whether it's a CAD drawing or a sketch, it's a form. And that's James Meek. That's one of the questions I have on my intro class. What is a blueprint? What is a print? It's for communication. You're communicating something. So thanks for bringing that information in as well. All of you, I appreciate that. All right, so back to James McGuinn. We talked about number 4. Estimate the distances on there. This is assignment 4. Estimate the distances. You don't have to pull a tape measure. Make sure you get the size of the trees. you want to use a term. There's a term called DBH, and DBH is diameter at breast height. Basically, when you stand at a tree at your chest, that's where you would wrap a tape around there, and you would measure the trunk of the tree. And so we use that term in surveying. When we were doing reconnaissance on a site, you would measure at your chest level, you measure around the tree, and that's what they would call the DBH. And then they give the diameter or the circumference of that trunk. And then you also give the diameter of the canopy of it. Call out details like that. Again, you don't have to pull out a tape measure. This is all estimating for right now. So a bunch of stuff coming in. Let me see. James Meek says you can thank Professor, I don't know that professor, but from DCCD for pounding that point into my head. And that was a point on communication, James. That sketching is for communication. Okay, great. I will thank him. I need all the help I can get down at this end. Great to hear that. James McWynn, just to be clear, I have no issues with sketching. In basic 1409 class, you had us do sketches of the house on printed out title block and paper. If I did, that was a mistake, James. Just to let you know, that was a mistake in either not catching it or in communicating it. So that was a fair question, James McWynn. Fair question. So my mistake on that.
Okay.
My principle is always, if it's sketching with pencil, it's on a hand-drawn title block and border.
Okay, good to know.
All right.
My last name is McGinn.
What did I say?
It's not McGuinn. It's
McGuinn. Okay, McGinn. All right. Sorry. Thanks for the correction on that.
Okay.
I don't know why I read it correctly, and I don't know why the mouth doesn't want to go the right direction. So, thanks for the correction on that, James.
No problem.
I wish I could just go James M or James. Anyway, we'll work through it this semester. It's my challenge. So, all right. So, James, again, can I answer your question about assignment 4?
I believe so.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait. You believe so? That means you got more? Or you want to think about it?
I'm gonna just work on it, and when the questions pop up, I'll have some questions for you at that point.
Perfect. All right. I just want to make sure I was clear enough on my explanation, just to get you going and get you in trouble, right?
So we're just gonna draw our front yard and then the details in there of the SWAT.
Yes, you're going to draw the front yard with all the details, all the analysis, wind, trees, shrubs, all that stuff we mentioned. And then the next assignment will just be a written assignment doing the SWOT of that drawing. Cool.
So the written assignment will just be details of the site analysis and SWOT.
Yes. So you'll look at your assignment 4 sketch, and then you'll start off on your SWOT. You'll start off with strengths. So what are the strengths of my site? And then you'll write that out. It doesn't have to be a thesis of 400 pages for one statement, but just write that out as clear as possible. Then you go to the W, and you go to the opportunities and strengths. So that will be for assignment 5. Cool. All right. Let's see. Here we are. So we're just estimating the front yard on assignment 4, not measuring correct. These are all estimated sizes and distances, all right? And this is to help you calibrate your eye, because we will be getting into a little more precise measuring as we move through this project. Right now, I just want you to be able to just give a good estimate, and don't take a lot of time pulling a tape measure this way and that way. Just getting an analysis, getting a start on it, and we're going to refine this information. How'd I do? Answer your question okay? Oh, great. Both my screens just went blank. I know you guys can see everything, so. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome, have you are. All right. All right, James. Thank you. All right. Any other questions? Didn't see it for a second, so it went blank on your side too. Wow. James again. Yeah.
I had a question.
Go ahead, Larry.
All right. On the hand-drawn sketch, when we draw the title block and borders, we draw that by hand too, or do we get to use a ruler?
You use a roller on it. That's what I'm saying. Nice straight measured title block and border.
Okay. I remember the first class I got in trouble for doing that backwards.
That was, if you got in trouble, that was the instructor's fault then, because not giving you good direction. So I'll take the hit on that, Larry.
Okay.
I try to make it as clear as possible, but that's why I depend on you guys to ask questions like that. Both James McGinn and Larry, thank you for bringing that up, clarification, because I'm sure other people may have been guessing at it. So hand drawn, straight edge with a pencil, title block and border. Use 1/4 inch on the border all the way around, the same measurements on the title block for 8.5 by 11, and then a freehand sketch in the middle of that with all the information we just talked about today. All right. I wish I could see your faces because then I could figure out if there's any more questions. So I'm just kind of hanging here for a second. And site analysis, page 7. Are you talking about the textbook, Iman? Yeah, in the textbook. I didn't even reference that because I gave you so much information on the PowerPoint. And let me see here. Oh yeah, yeah, exactly like one of the PowerPoints that I don't know if you guys can see this or not. That's page 7 on there. So that's another example. I mean, just tons of examples out there. You type that in. So Iman, thank you for that. Appreciate that. So, and that textbook gives you some good examples on types of the sketching, how to sketch, the canopy of a tree and things like that. And page 8 and 9, design development. Yep, exactly. So yeah, the textbook. This is probably one of the better textbooks. This class has gone through. First started out with no textbook for this class, and that's about time I picked it up. I'm sorry, it started off with I started off with a textbook that wasn't very good. I tried a semester with no textbook, and it didn't work too well. And then I picked out another one and so this is like the third generation on textbooks, trying to find one for this class. So hopefully this will have a lot of good information. James McGinn says I should have the textbook today. Okay, cool. I get the textbook. We'll be doing some stuff out of that, and it's good reference, especially if you're going into this area. All right, it is just about 2:30. I will be here till 3:15. And to answer any questions in lab time, I would advise you strongly to use the lab time because life happens as soon as you leave the class, right? So use this lab time and fire any questions. I'll start answering emails. I didn't get to all the attendance emails today because this morning just fell apart like an egg crumbling under pressure. So I didn't crumble, but that's the way the morning went. So ask me any questions, email or in the chat box. I'll be here till 3:15. You guys are doing great. Thanks for putting up with me. And if I don't talk to you in the next 45 minutes, I will see you, trying to see you, or talk to you tomorrow. Take care. Yes, Larry. Yeah, go ahead.
On the email the instructor, and it says include the email response. Would he just copy that somehow and send it to you?
Yeah, just copy it onto a Word document and include it in your packet.
Okay, onto a Word document. Gotcha.
Yeah, that'd
All
be
right.
the easiest. Yeah.
Now,
Sometimes,
when I get all this stuff done, you want it all categorized properly, obviously. Just email it to you in one big zip file or something.
well, you don't have to zip file it, but if you look at the videos that I've made on how to submit, that will tell you exactly how to submit. So yes, you're correct. It comes in at one time. You do not have to zip file it. And,
Okay.
and yeah,
Oh, what's that? Yeah. Okay.
so, yeah, look at the videos. That's what they're there for, to help you guys out with that. James McGinn says I should have, you can print it as a PDF. Yes, you can print it also as a PDF. I was just going to say that you could save it as a PDF, and then you don't even have to do with any printing as well. So either way, Larry and James, thanks for that. Either way, we'll
Okay.
work on that. Cool. Please review the videos. I made a bunch of them trying to help you guys out. Yeah, James, go ahead. Again.
James McGinn, yes. On the sketch, would you like the dimensions of the property?
Yeah, estimate those too. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Everything that will help you when you finally put this into CAD.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
All
Sounds
right,
good.
cool. All right. Perfect. Thanks for asking that. I still have the recording going, so this will help other people too.
No problem.
All right. Good to have you in the class, James.
Thank you.
I thought you had to take 1409 before you took this one. Did you get an exception or?
I took all those classes.
Oh, you already took 1409 the first 8 weeks then, huh?
Yeah, I was in class with you on the technical drafting.
Yeah, 13. Yeah, I remember
And then
1305. Yeah.
we took basic 1409 online
Very good.
because of after March we had to go to online.
Okay. Yeah, I thought you were taking it this next 8 weeks. That's why. But it's
No,
good to have you. Good to have you in the class either way.
Yeah, I already took that with you. As you remember, we were trying to figure out this collaborative thing together, and I was usually the only one in the room.
Yeah, exactly. Boy, that was a tough semester, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was hard on everybody. Hopefully, it's getting better. And hopefully, you can let me know by the end of the semester if I did any better than that one semester. So.
Well, this is a lot better having this actual online lecture because we didn't have that last time, and this makes a big difference.
Perfect.
It's kind of like being in class, so I appreciate it.
Okay, very good. Well, I'm glad it's working out for you, and hopefully it's working out for everybody else too. So, I think this will be a fun class. So, good questions. I appreciate all your questions and comments, all of you. Thank you so much. All right, I'll go ahead and stop the recording. End of session.